In the ever-evolving work world, project managers need to stay on top of stuff. With all the technology advancement, artificial intelligence, it is important that you understand the trends. So in this video, that's what we're going to break down. What are the top 6 trends you need to be aware of so that you can rock your projects? Trend 1, hybrid project management. Okay, so what do I mean by hybrid project management? Hybrid project management takes the best of waterfall methodology and agile methodology and combines them together so that you use both of the positive aspects of both methodology in executing your project. Why is this becoming a trend? Because what we're finding is these single methodologies on their own have some challenges and drawbacks. Now, one thing with Agile on its own, what is one of the drawbacks? A lot of people don't know how to follow it properly. And a lot of times in Agile, they're just focusing on an aspect of the project and forgetting the stuff in the beginning, the proper planning, and even the closing and training. And with Waterfall, again, solid methodology, but it's so linear that sometimes it just takes way too long to get things done because you have to wait until the next. You have to finish something before you can move on to the next one. So this hybrid project management is taking the best of both worlds. So there's a lot of value to a linear approach, particularly in the beginning of the project when you're initiation and planning. And then in execution, taking an agile approach, which is going to help you by, taking your requirements in smaller chunks, maybe even doing things in parallel is really helpful to move things forward. And then in the end, closing it out probably with a waterfall methodology approach. So this hybrid approach is something that is taking the best of both worlds, really ensuring that you can get things done, but really closing the loop on what you're trying to do, which is to look at a project from true start to true finish. Trend number 2, artificial intelligence, also known as AI. So artificial intelligence is basically a tool that is out there that you can input information, ask questions, and it spits out like conversations and really good detailed information. This is a trend that is definitely making its way in the professional world and in projects. Why? Because it helps you save time. Some of the things that AI can do is it can create documents, and it could, like baseline documents, don't get me wrong, not like finalized documents. It can look at risks. It can look at, give you ideas for copywriting. It's a little bit mind-blowing how much artificial can do for you. Now, it is so powerful for projects that I have actually, in my SLAY Project Management Pro course, have actually created an artificial intelligence tool to help baseline all your key project management documentation so that really quickly you can get your information, work with your subject matter experts to validate it, because I really want you to make sure that if you use artificial intelligence, be very careful with the information because it comes from open source and sometimes that data is not correct. So you do have to validate it. Artificial intelligence information on its own, do not take it for face value, but use it as a springboard. And again, that's what I did in SLAY Pro. So it helps you springboard it, baseline it so you can validate it. And what's really important that you're going to see with artificial intelligence, it allows you to spend more time on other things that maybe you couldn't do because you're so busy creating documents. Things like, ensuring that your teams are connected, doing more stakeholder meetings and getting more buy-in, maybe more brainstorming workshops on concepts and ideas, which afterwards, by the way, you can vet through artificial intelligence. So it is definitely a trend. We're going to see more and more of it being utilized in projects and in the workforce. Before we get into more trends, this right here is something you really want to take a look at. And where can you get it? It's in the link underneath this video. I highly recommend you download it. Trend 3, online mentorship. Okay, I'm seeing this more and more with the professional world, particularly because we are living in a hybrid professional world where people work at home and some people go to the office, where it's a combination. But that online mentorship is becoming more critical so we can be connected and we can learn and we can grow. Really important. Now, this is kind of like online mentorship as well. You come to this YouTube channel to learn, but other ways too is to be part of a community. And that community is to help ask questions, to get some guidance. And what, again, as I said earlier on in my SLAY Project Management Pro program with the artificial intelligence, I actually have coaching and mentorship built into that program as well, because this is where the trend is heading. Where do you go to get help? Particularly when you are, let's say, working from a hybrid perspective and you're working from home, and maybe you just want to go to a community that everyone is like-minded so that you can get that assistance. This is becoming more important for growth so that you can really be excellent and excel in your projects because you've got some feedback from other people. That becomes really, and people who are neutral, which is going to be really important. Trend 4, simplicity. Okay, yes, this is a trend, but I want you to realize that simple is hard and complex is easy. So why is this a trend? Because with simplicity, you actually have to spend some time and quality and doing renditions in order to make things simple. But this is now becoming expected. So when we're creating something, implementing a project, having the deliverable, has it been thought through? Is it simple in its approach? So just slapping things together, checking it off your task list in order to get it done, and saying, there's your deliverable, is not acceptable anymore, because it creates layers of issues down the road, particularly for those who are using that deliverable or who've been assigned that deliverable that you just created or had to implement. So simplicity is becoming important to be built into the project. So that means as a project manager, which again, remember those trends with AI and mentoring, it becomes really important that you build those into your project plan so that you can get those renditions down. So that ultimately what you're delivering is not perfect, because it doesn't have to be perfect, but it needs to be simple. And there's some thought process that has to go around that. So that's something, again, it's really going to distinguish you if you can be really excellent at executing your projects, but in the end, making sure it's very simple. But also take note, if you see something that is simple, don't disregard it. Take note, a lot of energy and effort went behind it. And that is what we're now seeing as a trend. Simple, simple, simple. Trend 5, sustainability. Okay, and I'm not talking about environmental sustainability. I'm talking about deliverable sustainability. So what do I mean by that? So think about it like this. How many times have you worked on a project, the deliverable has been done, but the sustainment of it after the fact had a lot of hiccups and hassles, and whoever was receiving that deliverable just was having a really hard time with execution. But because you were done, they had no support, they had no help. So sustainability is now becoming a huge trend. Your project does not end when the deliverable is done. It ends probably about 2-3 months after the fact so that you can ensure it's sustained. So much so that you have to bring that into your project plan. You have to start talking about sustainability. You have to bring in the end user to make sure that they understand what has to be done. And you tie in simplicity with that previous tip I talked about into this as well. So sustainability, can what you produced as a deliverable in your project, will it sustain itself? Will there be the proper support to ensure that that deliverable is doing what it's supposed to be doing? Because you do not want people to rework your deliverable that you've been working on because it wasn't thought through properly and it's not sustainable. Last but not least, trend 6, change management. Okay, you've probably heard of this. Why is this a trend? Because it's becoming more and more critical that you have an understanding of your stakeholders and the change that is going to occur for them with your project. Now, interestingly enough, stakeholders are not just the end users. Stakeholders are throughout the project. So this is now the trend and the shift is you have to start thinking about internally in your project, who are your stakeholders? You have to think about externally, who are your stakeholders? Who's the end user stakeholder? And you got to build that into your project plan. How are you going to communicate? How are you going to train them? What documents do they need? Again, this is now tying into the previous trend of sustainment. So you can see how all these trends kind of build off of each other. So this whole change management, if you haven't done change management before, you're going to need to start doing it. Now, change management on its own is huge, but you can simplify it and you can break it down to just have the necessities to help you through with the project. Now, depending on the scale of your project, you either want to bring in a lot more change management aspects or you just want to bring it down to the core basics, which tend to be documentation, training, communication, and sustainment. So that is something you definitely have to start building into your projects. Now, if you want to understand how to make sure your projects aren't struggling, particularly with all these trends that are coming up, as I showed you earlier on, this is something you really want to consider. The link for it is underneath this video to download. With all these trends, you're going to want to watch this next video, which is a step-by-step on the 5 things you need to do to grow as a project manager. On that note, if you could subscribe to this channel, join this amazing community, like this video, and leave a comment, that'd be great. Until the next time, see you later.